Isaiah chapters 21 to 24 today, and this is continuing the theme of the book of Isaiah, that it's profound and very interesting, and there's a lot of stuff in here. You can see why this is quite a significant book. And it's really interesting that this is the one that was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I assume there were others as well, but it's particularly interesting that this one, I mean, if you were going to pick one to find in a cave thus far, this would probably have been a good one with all the prediction stuff. Anyway, we're continuing with another prophecy of the end of Babylon, which I think we had in the last one, but it happened anyway, even albeit there are no dates given here. And it also talks about the downfall of Edom and Arabia. So yeah, we're continuing this idea with the last few chapters that everything's just a little bit doom and gloom and not much fun. We then come on to this odd bit about Jerusalem, and you read it twice. I was like, what is it saying here? You get the impression you could do an entire video just on this one chapter and still not actually conclude what it's all about. But it does seem to be suggesting that there's some not good stuff is happening or going to happen with Jerusalem because God is unhappy with what the people are doing there. And I suppose that's the most conclusion I've got, but it doesn't really do justice to the sort of weirdness in the writing, but I think that's all we can really do with it for now, so we'll just go on and see. There's a prophecy for the fate of Tyre. Tyre is in the thing you have on your car, unless you live in America, then the spelling is different. It says that the city of Tyre is to be forgotten for 70 years, very specific, and then will return to lucrative prostitution, where it says, but the profit will go to those who live before the Lord. So I'm not quite sure what that means. The prostitution in this sense doesn't seem to be the traditional sense. It seems to be more just sort of selling your resources, natural resources or something like that. And it didn't sound like it was terrible, particularly as you're reading it. But at the same time, I guess it's perhaps not a sustainable and kind way to do things. Something like that. And this forgotten for 70 years thing is really odd. And then, of course, they're going back to this prostitution, to making some sort of money for doing things that God doesn't particularly approve of. But the money is going to be given to those who sit before the Lord, or whatever it is. Yeah, don't know. Chapter 24 is ominously headed Destruction of Earth. So, yeah, this bit it gets pretty explicit. And Isaiah is not a fun chap, though, really, is he? But this talks about that the earth is going to burn, and there's going to be very few people left after this some sort of burning. Not clear if it's metaphorical or not, so that's kind of a complication here. But the way it's described, it really properly sounds like a Terminator scenario here with the nuclear bombs and then the rising afterwards. Because as I'm reading this, I'm thinking, okay, so it's going to burn off all the bad people and then the good people are going to be left. And then heaven turns out it's on earth and it's just all the bad stuff's gone and it's good. But no, because this is talking about, what's it going to say? Talk about of the few people who are left after the big burning incident. It talks about joyful sounds are banished from the earth and beer is bitter to its drinkers. So those who survive the fire judgment-y thing are going to have a miserable time here as well. Yeah, so that's not much fun at all. It did occur, though, that obviously this hasn't happened. I mean, there's this documentary with Arnold Schwarzenegger about it. But could it be metaphorical? As in, I mean, you could argue that we're sort of burning in the fire of post-truth and social media to some sort of extent these days. And people in general seem to be losing the ability to actually think about whether things are a good idea or not. In that idea of dumb stuff normalises, we're obviously at peak dumbness, it would seem. I suppose we're always at peak dumbness. And so not suggesting that's reflective of this fulfilling this prophecy. But yeah, it's a really difficult one because, I mean, you kind of want to read that metaphorically. I mean, I imagine a lot of people don't want to read that metaphorically. They want to read that as, there's actually going to be fire and stuff. But there's no sort of guide in the Bible of how to take it, whether it's metaphorical or not, other than the fact there is an awful lot of metaphorical language in the Bible. So that would sort of suggest that this is perhaps something we should be taking metaphorically. It then doubles down on the weird, and it talks about the earth will be broken up. So could be metaphorical, could be the burning up is the sun expanding sort of thing. But it talks about God is going to, what's he going to do? He's going to, powers in the heavens will be punished. And it specifies that we're punished because of all our rebellion against God. Sort of fair enough. But what have the people in heaven done? And that's really odd. I mean, you've got Satan, obviously, who knows, presumably he can read, so he's read the book of Isaiah, and he must be bobbing along reading the Bible one day and go, oh, well, yikes, I didn't know if I don't sort my ideas out, God is going to actually come and punish me. So presumably he knows that. So that's one of the most interesting things about this, isn't it? There's something the devil knows that we don't know, and it'd be really interesting to know what that is. On the plus side, this does seem to finish positive in the sense that it talks about God is going to reign in Jerusalem. So it sounds kind of like we've got life now as we know it. There's going to be some sort of really unpleasant event of judgment, whether that's going to actually involve fire and the earth breaking up or metaphorically so. On the other side of that, God is going to reign in Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is still going to be there, unless the reference to Jerusalem here is metaphorical as well. But when you put it all together with other stuff, like earlier on we had the mention that children will be able to put their hand in a viper's nest and without harm, and they can play with cobras, and leopards and lions are going to lie down with lambs and sausages or whatever it is. You put all that together, it starts to make it sound like heaven or the afterlife, the bit that comes after this life, that is the other side of this judgment, is on earth. So yeah, that's really interesting. I'm not quite sure what to do with that, but I'm aware that the Christian idea of heaven, as most people think of it, the spirit coming out of the body and going off. I've stumbled across the confirmation that is not actually in the Bible. That's an idea that came from Plato. So I've sort of been trying to separate myself from that idea of heaven anyway. But it does seem in this Isaiah idea, that does seem to be spelling out that heaven is a recreation of earth. And we've had that idea of Jesus' death being a second Exodus. Well, we haven't had that yet, but this is talking about that. So the first Exodus brings the Israelites out of Egypt and into the Promised Land, and then they cock it up. Second Exodus is we're on this earth, we get judged, Jesus steps in to save us from this, or the consequences of this judgment, and then the Promised Land for us is here, but where snakes don't bite you anymore. Something like that. It is hard, Isaiah. This is I don't quite know what to do with it. Fantastically interesting, but yeah, we'll carry on and see what else we can find.